So I think one thing specifically industry could argue is, let it be state specific, while GOI will not impose any factors hereafter. Only if the state wants will there be investment in that state. I think that's a good compromise. Nobody can seriously object to that. States' rights are fully protected. If anything, states are given rights in an area where they don't have. They should be happy. Mamata Banerjee should be jumping with joy. The Prime Minister could actually broker a deal. The problem the politicians is they don't know how to broker deals. The real big deals, the kind of grand bargains that are required, they're missing. Pensions, there's a problem. Oil prices, Prime Minister still is talking about biting the bullet. I hope he will. I'm a great champion of oil price increase. It's a terrible thing to subsidize from the public exchequer the oil for my car. And we must, the price signal must drive us to different kind of behavior. And alternatives must emerge because of the price signal. And in any case, public exchequer cannot be depleted because you want to subsidize a consumable product on a day-to-day basis. It's very dangerous for the country. Fertilizers is a big challenge. I don't know how to grapple with that. The finance minister talked about transferring the subsidies directly to the farmer and the retailer. Nice on paper, but in reality it will not work. There's a danger of enormous corruption because they require a certificate that, yes, I'm a user of fertilizer, therefore I want this. It will create more problems. A better approach would be, again, the industry must talk to the finance ministry. You straight away allow not industry-specific subsidy or a unit-specific subsidy based on the capital cost as now, but a standard subsidy. You average everything and say this is a standard subsidy giving on urea, and then give it to the manufacturers nevertheless, and impose a price. Whether they survive or not is their business. We're not concerned any longer. This simply is not on, because this anyway is a quantum-specific subsidy, but it will lead to more corruption, more inefficiency. Therefore, it's not a wise approach. Food. The FM talked about Food Security Act, enough provision for that. I personally think it's a disastrous law. I personally believe that a large amount of food distributed through PDS is recycled to FCI, and most of the public subsidies are actually siphoned off by private interests, either the traders or the corrupt officials. The appointment of a fair pro shop dealer in a village, you know what's the price? 3 lakh rupees in Andhra Pradesh. The transfer and posting of a DSO in a district, typically 1 crore. So there's something seriously wrong, and unfortunately the finance minister is helpless because his leader somehow decided that it's good for their party. It's not, but they won't see it. Power and coal, it's not merely allocations. I haven't seen any real urge for reform. I mentioned briefly power earlier, coal equally. Coal India's monopoly is destroying the country. We have to now boldly privatize and segment that wretched company. I'm sure you're all familiar with what's happened in the past year and two. We are now increasingly heavily dependent on imports. And the import cost is rising dramatically of a commodity which is abundantly available in this country. It's an insult to this country. I can understand oil. We don't have oil, therefore we have to import. Now, how to reduce consumption is what we have to see. But coal is something we have to continue to consume more and more as we have more and more power factories. And we have abundant coal in this country. 400 years of reserves are available. And yet, because of the sheer incompetence and corruption of the government, this country is paying a brutal price. And even now, apart from a few allocations, there's no real look at how to improve the supply of coal by removing the monopolies and then ensuring competition. The government has no clue. That's very disturbing. Last point. Fiscal deficit. I don't know if you have noticed, in the current year, 35% of the revenues of the government are going towards interest payments. They used to be 29, 30%. Now, in the last year or year and a half, it's gone up by 5%. More than 1/3 of our revenues are going only towards interest payments, not debt repayment. I'm talking interest payments. It's still not a critical situation, but it's not a happy situation. Among the large economies, we are the worst. And among these 4 economies, what do you call them? BRIC countries, we are again the worst. Each week I very hopefully, not that in 1 week anything changes, hopefully pour through the data on the Economist last page. and immediately my eye goes to India and China, inevitably. Other countries, I look at it later. Each time it's a great source of disappointment. So while there cannot be any short-term solution, that's the reason why I'm supporting the tax increases. There's no substitute. This country is on a downhill course fiscally if we don't now wake up. And yesterday, in that sense, while there is some criticism the finance minister is getting, his Hamilton dilemma is real. And I think we have to understand the compulsions and the genuineness in that. 5.9% revised estimate for 2011-12 is the fiscal deficit of the government of India. States probably another 3 to 4%, 3% probably. My best guess is 3% across the states because FRBM is applicable in states. And he is hoping to bring it down to 5.1. Let's hope so. Keep our fingers crossed. At the end of the day, what the FM has not specifically stated, what we have to focus on is corruption, and I hope that this budget session will look at some of these things. Rule of law, that means policing and justice. If we don't address these two big challenges in the country, and if we don't empower the local governments, this is the last point I'd like to make, very last point. Transfer a lot of resources to local governments, not because local governments are going to be less corrupt, I have no illusions. They'll be as corrupt. But A, the corruption will be much more transparent. People can see it and therefore fight back locally. And B, and this is very important, it's a fiscal issue. If somebody is a big smoker in a household, you go and give a lecture that, look, the smoking is costing you 2,000 rupees a month. Please give up smoking. That doesn't really, that's not attractive. But if the whole family gets together and says, look, what will I do with the 2,000 rupees saved? What are the other alternatives that I need? Then you have other constituents talking, that I could do something with the money I am wasting on smoking. If you want to take away some of the freebies which are unproductive, the best way is for the people to realize that this money is mine, I have some other use for this money, I want that more than this. That's politics and economics coming together in the best possible way. If you really judiciously empower local governments with a high degree of accountability and design mechanisms in a manner that this kind of a dialogue can take place, that you can make choices, rational choices, just as we talked about the states being given the power to decide whether or not FDI and retail trade will come in. Therefore, some states will decide yes, some will say no. Eventually, they'll all come to one agreement. Similarly, here also, some local governments will start doing things better, others will notice that, and there'll be a demand. Because in a growing economy with more middle classes, more young people, definitely there'll be demands of this kind. But those demands today cannot be articulated. They cannot be translated into policy outcomes. Therefore, we boxed ourselves in with a very terrible political economy. And that's why, and this is the last point I'd like to make, as I said, I would appeal to all of you, because I know you're all centralizers. You don't like to deal with local governments. Because whenever there is a public hearing in local government, you have to give more money there also. So you're vexed with that. I know. I'm fully aware of all that. It's easier to corrupt somebody at one level rather than to go to 25 fellows. I accept that. But there are larger reasons why judicious local empowerment, even in a fiscal sense, so that rational choices can be made in the larger interest of the economy, is absolutely vital. And India has the most centralized economy among the large economies of the world with potential for growth. Compared to even China. China is a remarkably decentralized economy. We forget in these lessons. We call ourselves a democracy, we are not. We are a libertarian country, we are a liberal country. We are not a democracy yet. To be a democracy, there must be power close to the people. People must actually impact on decision making. We don't have anything like that. We have a highly centralized system. I want you to ponder that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. We don't know how to thank you also. Having said that, I think we have our Senior Vice President, Mr. Devendra, kindly come over. And this was not planned, but I think I am forced to do some unplanned thing. That is, about a few observations or questions with Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, so that we get a much better, clear perception of what he spoke and what he wants the government, all of us to do. I think a few minutes and a few observations or questions from you.
63% to 65% of the taxes in the name of various name nomenclature. Unexplained money 30%. Straightaway service taxes from the negative list listing limiting to 17 services. Straightaway jump of not 2%, but it is a straight jump of 12% for several services. Definitely income tax, when it comes to income tax or an industry, only few people, only 3% of the 120 crore people are paying the taxes. But if it is custom duty, if it is excise, if it is any taxes which are being paid, it is paid by the industry. What industry has got in return? Nothing. But if you look at the companies, there are 9 lakh companies all over India. And out of that, 3 lakh crores plus taxes are collected from the companies. But how many companies pay? Of that, 80% of the taxes are paid by just 3,000 companies. If we come to the individuals of 3 lakh crores, I mean 3 crores SSCs, hardly 15,000 SSCs pays for 80% of the taxes. And if you see the increase in the taxes over the year to year, it is last year 1 lakh crore, it is 1 lakh 4 crores, 4% increase. So if we talk of purchasing power from 2004, if I used to purchase whatever was there in 2004 for 1 lakh rupees, I have to spend for the same today 3.5 lakh rupees. If you see for inflation, high interest rates, and the GDP, etc., what you talk about, what has been given to the channelizing for growth? Nothing. So Companies Act, which we were looking, nothing has come out of it. $1 rise into the barrel prices will lead to 7,000 crores of inflation. Today, barrel price is 125 rupees, whereas the fiscal deficit have been calculated at the rate of 115 per barrel. I think there are several issues which I can, and just to say that international tax, nobody fears or afraid of payment of taxes in vis-a-vis subsidies. We are prepared to pay for it, but what in return we are going to get? In unemployment, senior citizen, medical, or anything, education. In other countries, it is a public charge. Thank you, sir.
Angst. All I would like you to remember is somebody has to pay taxes for the government to run, for the public goods to be available, and public services to be available. Somebody has to pay. In this country, somehow we think that all taxation is sinful. It's not true. Yes, we must focus on how to get the best benefit out of taxes. In other words, how to channelize public expenditure and how to guarantee productive outcomes and minimize corruption. But that's not an argument against either government or taxes. If you say no taxes, that means you're saying no government. I'll be delighted if there's no government. I'm an anti-government wala. But the truth is, we need a government for us to be able to sit here. We need a government for us to have some, even bad roads. We need a government for us to even have some kind of water supply. We need a government for us to call up the police and say, look, there's a problem here. So don't forget that. The government is doing badly is an issue we all should fight. But the answer does not lie in enfeebling the government and completely destroying the tax base. That's all I can say.
Thank you. I think the one
as a form of subsidization. And the second is, don't you think the assumptions underlying the budget should be made more transparent? In the sense, what happens is the economic advisor casually made a mention that diesel is being decontrolled, whereas these things should, don't you think it should form part of the budget document, that what are the policy changes that are assumed as far as the budgeting is concerned?
Reforms, why the country is not achieving the good industrialization. My one question is, when we are the good natural resources like coal, why our capital is going out of country? In my main reason is government inefficiency, bureaucrats